everyone. I'm Linda Nickell, and welcome to the Happiness Hour. Tonight's guest is Marcela Briere. Marcela is an adventure photographer with a deep passion for nature, exploration, and storytelling. She spent nearly a decade traveling full-time, capturing remote landscapes and the richness of cultures around the world, while also leading landscape photography workshops along the way. Now based in Austin, she continues to lead workshops across the globe, supporting and inspiring photographers at every stage of their journey. Her work has been featured in exhibitions and editorial publications worldwide, but at the heart of it all, Marcela sees photography as a way to tell meaningful stories, stories that create connection and invite reflection. In tonight's presentation, Wandering with Purpose, Compositional Choices that Elevate Your Landscapes. Marcela will talk about some advanced ways of seeing, the intentional use of light, and subtle compositional decisions that elevate both grand landscapes and quiet details. You can connect with her through her website, marcelaoutside.com. And if you're on Instagram, you can look for her at Marcela Outside. Marcela, welcome to the Happiness Hour.
Hi, Linda. Thank you so much. That was quite an introduction.
Yay! All right. Hang on one second. Let me get your screen here. Before you get started, I always like to lay the groundwork of how did I find you? Why are you here? What favors do you owe me? And she's worried, y'all. Can you see the concern on her face? Yeah. So Marcela participated in the Texas Photography Festival last year, and she was one of the people we had that led a workshop. And I did not know her until happy hour at the end of the day. We kind of ran into each other, and I think I asked her how her workshop went, and she was super bubbly and excited. And I thought, she's a perfect candidate to come and speak to you guys. And so I just said, hey, would you come? And she said yes without hesitation. So it's taken us almost a year to get her on the schedule, but I'm super glad to have you. And I thank you for giving up your Wednesday night to be here with us. So yeah, I did your intro. If I missed something that you want to add, take the time to fill in the gaps for us.
No, thank you so much. I'll talk a little bit about me as I start sharing, but I am so honored to be here tonight, and I really appreciated the invitation. Looks like you have such a beautiful community of photographers here, and yeah, I'm excited to share a little bit of my story and see if that helps people get inspired in any way.
Yeah. All right. Well, the screen is yours, and I'll let you run with it. Yeah.
Let's see. Well, my name is Marcela, and as Linda said, I'm a landscape photographer. I'm based out of Austin, and I basically spent like 7 years traveling full time before settling here. I left Mexico in 2018 or 19, and then just stayed moving for a while, and then that led me to doing a bunch of exploration, mountaineering, and different adventures. I always did travels that involved some kind of physical challenge, and that led me to get to know my camera really well, and eventually decided to lead workshops. Started leading workshops locally in Mexico, more than a class. It was like a whole experience for a weekend in the mountains. And then that just got escalated to doing workshops internationally. And so that's what I've been doing since then. Let me just keep scrolling. I have a book focused on my mountaineering work, snowed landscapes mainly. And I've done collaborations with different magazines related to tourism projects and stories about extreme sports, adventures, and things like that, and just collaborate with multiple brands throughout my career. This is a little bit of my work. And as you can see, there's multiple landscapes of different types. I've been in the deserts, I've been in snow, water, seas, and up in altitude above 6,000 meters. I'm not sure how to translate that to feet, the metric system, and the always plays with my mind. But yeah, just multiple types of landscapes. And that brings me to building this class today called Wandering with Purpose, right? And I usually on my workshops teach more of the technical aspect of photography together with my approach, right? But I like to talk about filters and composition and the planning and scouting, but I knew that today I wanted to bring something different because I know that a lot of people here have already had experience with photography. So I just thought about how I could make this different. So I'm just going to share, from how is my approach and my experience with photography as I've been navigating these different and challenging landscapes, and what's my approach, what I do. And I would invite this to be more of a conversation. I would like to hear people's thoughts in the end and just see where this leads, right? And if anybody has questions about technical aspects of things, I'm super happy to talk about it. So yeah, this leads me to this question of how do we move with awareness and care while seeing with purpose? Because as you can see in these photos, most of my work is moving. So there's hiking and mountaineering involved. There's climbing up a wall, like being tied to ropes, and or using a bicycle, and it's always just moving. And so a lot of photographers, especially landscape photographers, as I've been learning, is people are always talking about slowing down. You gotta slow down and be present. But and like take a break to compose a shot and things like that, right? And that's a wonderful approach, and that's what I usually also share in my workshops. But for me, my journey as a photographer really started in the mountains. And I wasn't just learning how to see the light and compose the landscape, but I was also learning how to keep moving and how to be aware of the environment and how to balance the intention with the reality that sometimes you can't just stay in one spot. So to me, this means that every photograph is really the result of a journey. And it's a series of choices and micro decisions that are made constantly. So you have to think about the weather, you have to think about the trail, about the time that you have to get back to get home safe. And that's mainly what I want to share with you today, how to move with that kind of awareness and care while still seeing and photographing with purpose. Purpose is shaped by the limits and not the absence of them. So basically, as I said before, there's always these limitations that prevent you from staying in one place for a lot of time and like just waiting for the right light and waiting for the right moment. So sometimes these limitations have helped me be more intentional and more present, and always moving and adjusting with the light rather than waiting for the right moment. Another thing that I was thinking about is that big landscapes don't necessarily need big drama. And just hold on, I'm gonna try to make these smaller here, something on my screen. I'm sorry about that. That's good. Okay. So sometimes we run into days that are just pretty flat with overcast light where nothing spectacular is really happening. And still, the compositions that we make can be really intentional and create a powerful image. Sometimes the quiet tension often creates stronger images. So for this one, I was staying still for a little bit, but I remember just walking this morning and moving around the lake a lot, and that's where I took this picture in Mexico. And then there's big landscapes like this where I was there that morning. This place is in New Zealand and it's usually really foggy. And I was there to capture like a mystical morning. And I had this idea in my head that I was gonna, see the fog and it was gonna be really mystical. But it was this like completely clear blue sky and the sun was like fully hitting the mountains. And well, I just adjusted to that and decided to search different compositions like this reflection there that maybe wouldn't have been there otherwise and things like that. So that was really impressive to me. And then also we have, really small scenes like these where sometimes it's just right in the corner of our eye and we might miss it. But if we turn around, instead of focusing on the big landscape, I also like to focus on the small things as I'm walking and moving. And then I notice little scenes like this that I think are worth stopping for. So yeah, not everything needs to impress right away, but taking the time to notice and stop while also moving is really, worth it. And you all know here because everyone's a photographer here, but it's this like noticing that makes a big difference. And as photographers, I feel that like we really learn to train our eyes. We really, just as we learn to see and we learn to notice things different, just as birders can find a bird really quickly, right? Like right above the tree, really far away. And people that are not into birding would be like, how can you spot that so quickly? So I feel that us as photographers have this trained eye to also see and notice, and truly understanding what a camera can do to capture what we feel or what we truly see is these magic of like knowing and understanding the gear to be able to adapt to the environment quickly, right? So just training the eye to see where we see direction, where a path is going, leading lines, instead of just seeing a big picture and a big landscape. A lot of people come to me saying like, oh, I see this big landscape and it took me hours to get there, but I don't know how to take a good photo that makes it justice once I get there. And I'm like, well, there's multiple techniques, right, that we can do, but you got to train the eye to be able to see it and to do justice to a place and give it, the depth and the layering and all of these things that a lot of people wouldn't know how to do. So I really like photography because it has taught me to see things different and like understand the beauty and the patterns of nature in a different way that I feel that I wouldn't otherwise. So yeah, again, like the leading lines, especially after hours of hiking, like once you get to a beautiful place, and stopping to take it all in and finding all of these patterns and textures and lines with my camera, seeing a sunset. Of course, I'm always chasing sunsets and sunrises, but also I've learned that that's not like it used to be a limitation, and I've learned to adjust to also take a lot more photos during midday, right? Like the middle of the day, where a few years ago that was a total no-go for me. But for this one, for example, like the sun is laterally there, but I know that I could take a good shot in the middle of the day here too, because I know how to see the harsh lines that the sun creates in the middle of the day and things like that. So understanding where my eye is being pulled and what the lines are doing, what the light is doing. here again, this was like a sunset at the desert in Baja California in Mexico. And I could see all of these cacti in the horizon. And I was doing some sandboarding there, I remember. But then I got down and I got low enough to see that I could put the sun behind these cactus. And I was like, oh, let me see what happens if I put the sun like right behind it in the middle. And then suddenly this bird flew and stopped there. And it just made this composition that for me was too special and perfect in the moment that I snapped it, and well, it turned out like this. But it's this capacity to see and to try to search for perspectives that we wouldn't see if we don't stop and pause and look around us, right? So strong images often also allow movement and not just rest. And what do I mean by this? Um, Not necessarily that there needs to be an action or an active story, but that composition-wise, when we make the eyes dance on the image, it's like it spirals left and right and up and down, and it really submerges the viewer into the scene. And I think that makes a powerful image, right? And it can also be really simple and minimalistic, don't get me wrong, but I do feel that photos that have this effect are powerful. So how do you create that when you have a big landscape in front of you? So using different composition techniques is what helps to do this, right? Like here, for example, this is it's a landscape. It's beautiful in North Carolina in the fall. And I wanted to do something a little more creative. So I used the intentional camera movement to play around with it and come up with something that would look a little more abstract or like a painting. And so it makes me wonder, what the difference is between like a big landscape photography versus macro or something more abstract that creates a lot of curiosity and wonder in the viewer. And you can do both, because as a landscape photographer, I used to feel that I fall in this category that I only do landscapes, right? Like I capture the big picture. But slowly I've learned that there's all these tiny landscapes that are coexistent within the big picture. And that's when then these things happen, and little scenes with flowers or Mika, for example, here would know because she's a macro photographer, I know. And then you start seeing all of these surprises around you. Then again, a big picture here. This is another scene that I feel, I use different composition techniques like having balance, left and right, and separating my elements. I do like to think of the subjects in a landscape as a relationship more than the subjects. So it's almost like a movie, and there's two people having a conversation. And when that happens, they either are, too close together, or really they need space to talk, right? And each person needs space to breathe. So that's kind of how I think of landscapes too, like making sure that each subject and each element has its own space to breathe, to be without the whole scene feeling too cramped, right? And sometimes a scene can just be full of things, but taking away the elements by zooming in or avoiding certain things from the composition will create these effects. Let me keep scrolling so I can share a little bit more about this. Like here, for example, the scene, thinking of the isolated yellow flowers, right? And like I tried to intentionally transmit something through this image. And I know that people can interpret the images in different ways, but here was like, okay, I'm gonna give this little yellow bouquet of flowers by itself and show the vastness of the landscape that it was surrounded with. All these blue bonnets right here in Texas. Also here, like this waterfall and the relationship with the landscape, and the river and where I was standing, and the mist coming out of the water, and like the blue moss from the mountain, which makes it like this really unique landscape in Iceland. So I think this environment is really different and unique. So that is also part of telling a story, right? By separating the elements here, for example, what is this relation not only of this hot air balloon, but like what's the hot air balloon in this space, right? Flying in the sky, and how I'm isolating it from everything else that was there. Because this was a photo that I took in Turkey in one of our workshops, and there were so many things around us: the desert, other mountains, the other balloons, and I just tried to isolate one element here, creating this more minimal composition. Here as well, like the relation of people with the snow, with the skiing, and just trying to isolate all the elements and separate each thing and use the leading lines to guide the eye to where I want the attention to be. Also here, and seeing what the light is doing, isolating this tower that was part of another big mosque in Turkey, and I'm just isolating elements too. Black and white is something that I really like to implement in my landscapes. I don't use it really often, but I do think that sometimes when, maybe not in this scene, but you'll see some in the coming slides, that sometimes landscapes can feel too busy. And I do feel that black and white helps to isolate elements as well. Here, for example, this is a photo of this waterfall in these islands of the Azores in the Atlantic. And we were hiking, and I saw this waterfall, and I wanted to take a photo of, so this is my husband Dan in there, but I really wanted to make him stand out against the waterfall. And I have this scenario in many different waterfalls that I'm like, okay, how or where can I position myself to really make each element stand out by itself? And contrast is another big thing of another big way of doing this. So for example, that is the same place, except I positioned myself in a different place, and then I had him at a different spot in my image where he could stand out more. And I just felt that it communicated better with the waterfall. And we're using the surroundings as framing as well. Here too, I could talk a lot about this photo, but it's also like I'm trying to separate the elements, separate the foreground with the background, and then here waiting for the right moment where the sun is hitting the wave right in the center of these three stones, these three big rocks, pillars. So I wanted to, I'm treating it here as like they're all different elements. They're separated from each other, the rocks in the foreground where I'm staying, where I'm standing, and then the multiple layers behind it, right, as I go up on my frame. And if I'm going to use a foreground, trying to make it part of my image, not just fill up the space, but make it part of the story I'm telling. This image, I like that this chain here in San Francisco is just like mimicking the bridge back here. So, and then there's this reflection and different things, but I felt that again, I'm using this foreground to tell a bigger story about where I was, and the context of the surroundings of a place, right? But I'm trying to keep my elements each with, its own space to breathe. And if I'm going to use a foreground, helping it tell a story. Also, like here, my foreground in this photo of a sunrise that I took in Argentina is this lagoon here, right? Like I'm using the foreground to give context on the landscape and to show where I am, to show how big this is. A lot of people take these this photo, it's in El Chalten in Argentina, and it's easy to photograph it from the road on a car. But I had to walk like hours to get here at 6 in the morning. So part of my story was to share not only the view of the peaks, right, but also, what you can see when you're out there. So adding the lake in there is part of what I wanted to share intentionally. It was also just really beautiful, but then in the framing, tell the story. Again, this is the photo of the bonnets, but I am just using the surroundings to tell the story of what's going on, or to create wonder, to create curiosity in whoever's viewing the image. And so light defines form before it defines beauty. And I like to say that photography is the study of light, because I feel that that's all we're doing, whether it's outside, whether it's at a studio, or it's just anywhere. We are always reading the light, and there's a lot of technical books about light, but what I like to think of it as giving my composition form, right? And so before light makes a landscape beautiful, it gives it shape. It reveals the edges, the textures, the relationship even between the elements that I was just talking about. So if we pay attention to what the light is defining, not just how nice it looks, our compositions become stronger and more intentional. It's like the light is carving the land and separating the forms and showing us what really matters in the frame. So sometimes you wait for the light, and others you move with it. This one too. I liked how the shadows under the bridge were just really dark, and I could see the bright light in the city. So this is a little bit of my cityscape work, also using black and white, because I think that it helps to create this contrast. I just love it. So the photographer responds instead of just waiting and holding, right? As a landscape photographer, like, you adjust and you're moving and you're walking. So you respond to whatever is available where you're standing, versus waiting in one place for the moment to happen, which can also be an approach, of course, and I've done that, but this is the situation that I've found myself in many, many times. So adjusting, reading the light, and like really learning and knowing your camera, so I'm able to move the parameters quickly and catch what I want to share and transmit through a photo. Flat light can emphasize shape and texture, right? And then it's like here we can see all of the detail and make a pretty dramatic photo, even if it was a flat light, because that's what I was feeling and that's what I was seeing and that's what I wanted to share. And harsh light can also create really graphic compositions. This is a really funny one. I was doing a hike in Colorado, and I went off the trail with my husband, and it ended up being a really long hike that day. But where I'm going with this is that it was a little pond, was not on the radar. We had no idea that it was there, and it was really windy. But for a second, the wind stopped, and this is the scene it created, and I was just mind blown and I loved it. So it just created this like really dramatic scene that I fell in love with. So, and again, it's in the middle of the day. Also with this one, this was during one of my mountain expeditions, which is also when I started photography. I just brought my camera with me to all of these beautiful places that I was going to, and I couldn't just plan my photos like I do now, because now I do scouting, I do planning, and we'll get into that. But back then I was with a group and I need to come back in time before the weather goes bad, and I can't make other people just wait for me because I want to take my photo. So this scene is we were walking down from a summit, and I just looked back to see where the rest of the group was because we were divided in two. And I see these three mountaineers on their way down, and the clouds just passing by really fast. It was windy and they were moving, and you almost know, like I'm sure you all see these, how like the clouds change the light so much when they're moving so fast, and I just love that. So I turn around and I see that, and I had like 5 seconds only, but I really liked what the clouds did here and created this depth um, and contrast between the three people walking, and the contrast it added to the crevasse in the snow and the sky that was so blue. I mean, it's a beautiful landscape, but that just like adapting to where I was, the one photo that I could take and compose quickly with that, separating the elements and um, adjusting my camera quickly, right? So just this constant movement, constant adapting. This one as well. Something I really like to do to create dramatic landscapes is underexposing. So when I underexpose, then I can always rescue the shadows and see the highlights really well. So exposing for the highlights helps create really dramatic scenes like this. And again, just seeing the light. These only lasted for a few minutes and then it was gone. Here again, black and white, where I feel that using the highlights to give it contrast and the shadows to, darken the blacks is one of the techniques that I really like to do, right? Like dodging and burning. I'm not sure if people are familiar with that technique here in Photoshop and Lightroom, but I love doing that to give my landscape contrast. Again, hard light in the sunrise, little scenes. I love seeing the sunlight going through the leaves in trees. I'm so drawn to those textures. Big scenes, a whole forest. And I wanted to check the time quickly to see if we have a few minutes to share about
Yeah,
some
you're
of
good.
the techniques that I use for scouting. Is that good?
Yeah, you're good.
Okay, perfect. So for doing all of these photos, like I said, when I am, especially with other people and in activities that involve mountaineering or hiking a lot or cycling, I don't have a lot of time to plan and do a scouting as I would like to. But when I can, I do like to plan my shots as much as possible. And for that, I have different tools that I like using. And sometimes you plan for months and months and you show up and it's just the worst day you can imagine. But planning as much as you can We don't have control over anything, but planning as much as possible at least makes you feel better if you get the shot, or you know when you can come back to, right? So yes, understanding the importance of light, scouting locations, understanding the direction of light, and how to do all your composition research, right? I use different apps on my phone, like Google Earth, All Trails, Google Maps, 500px, PhotoPills, and Instagram. Well, Instagram, believe it or not, I use it sometimes for scouting. So just to show you a little bit about them, there's like a whole lot that we could talk about, but I'm just going to briefly mention them here. So if anybody is curious to learn about them, we can always have another call, or you can always also just like go on YouTube and try to learn by yourself and see, oh, what are all these things that I could do with Google Earth? Some people might already be familiar with, and some maybe not, but here's a little overview and here's the features that I use from them. So in Google Earth, you can basically see distances, right? And you can see the whole terrain and the type of, the elevation, if you're going to have to walk and things like that. So you can get to know the area through this aerial view of things. And you can also see different photos that people have taken in multiple spots of the area because people share them. So it's like a little social platform. I'm not sure if you zoom in, you can see. But if you would click on an image, then you can see what people have done standing on a specific spot. I did these scouting for Pedernales because I did a workshop there last year and we went there to take pictures. And I used it to figure out how long I was walking and which was the spot that I wanted to stand on. I had never been there before, so it was really helpful. And you can also measure distances and stuff like that. Here too. Then I also use, sorry, that was just like the same thing that I was talking about, measuring distances and stuff like that. 500px. I absolutely love this website. I use it anywhere in the world that I go to. I just type the name of the place and I see what other photographers, because this is filtered by photographers only, have taken there. And sometimes I use it, most of the time I use it, but also sometimes I would prefer to not see photos at all of the place that I'm going, because I know that having this surprise factor is also really, really special. And avoiding to get biased by what other people have done and remove my own expectations of what I want to achieve. Because sometimes by seeing other people's work, I can get there and get frustrated if it's not exactly how I wanted it. So also, like, these are tools that one can use, but it's also really fun to be surprised and not plan without putting yourself in danger, of course. All Trails. All Trails is really good for understanding what a hike will look like. So it will give you a description, about other hikers, or just people walking, right? It's like a hikes review app that it's really cool, and it tells you the distance and all of the little details if it's a popular trail. And Instagram, because I also like to see what normal people do, not just photographers, right? Because we all see different things, and photographers might have one specific goal, but also people who are not photographers see a bunch of other things. And I might get curious about, like a random corner that someone photographed. And I can also just get to see what people do there socially, or so yeah, I like to use it as well. And the one and only and most important of them all, PhotoPills. I'm sure that you all have heard of it, but I like to use it especially to plan astrophotography shots where I'm gonna try to catch the Milky Way with a certain composition. And I want to understand what the moon phase looks like, and at what time the sun is coming up, at what time the sun is setting, and at what time the galactic center will be over the horizon, and what elevation it will have, right? And all of these things. So it's a really fun app made by really geek scientists that are obsessed with all the little details, but it's really fun. I just narrow it down to a few things that I use. This is an example of how you can do the virtual reality. I also, if I can, show up to the spot before my photo day, and I do these photo peels, virtual reality, augmented reality thing to see, what will be happening at the time that I want to go there. This is a little simulation of the Milky Way and what it was doing that time of the year when I was there, so I could see at what time it's going to be over the horizon, and I can plan according to that, right? At what time I want to show up or where I'm going to sleep. Again, the visibility from the galactic center, and you can use all of these little tools to see the direction of the sun, the moon, and the Milky Way. I'm not going to dive too much into it, but this is what I like to use it for. So that's almost it. Finding your own style is really important. It has taken me years, and I still feel that I don't have my own style. I do like to go dark and moody sometimes, right? Like this one's. And if I'm there in the blue hour, and I know that that's most likely what I'm going to get. I also like bright and colorful at times, and I have been in really bright and colorful landscapes on different times of days. So I capture that too. I have people go into my Instagram. Sorry, I have had people go into my Instagram and just be like, your feed is just color. It's like a color splash. And I'm like, well, yes, because I photograph color and I adapt to the different environments. And I think that's part of the magic of it. I used to be frustrated for not having a specific style and just be like, because there's a lot of photographers that have only dark and moody photos, and there's photographers who only focus on yellow landscapes. I don't know. But to develop your own style, it takes a while. It takes patience. It takes practice. And this is, for example, same place in different seasons. This is in Iceland. One is in really cold winter. Another one is in summer, and the other one is in autumn. So just sometimes, if you can, going back to the same place in different seasons, it's quite a blessing. Well, I'm just going to close with this. Wandering with purpose doesn't mean knowing exactly where you're going. It means being fully present with where you are. And thank you. This is a QR code that might lead you directly to my Instagram if it's working. And I would definitely love to connect and stay in touch there. So I hand it over to you, Linda.
Yeah, no, I'm going to hand it right back to you. I've got a couple of questions. Judia's question: do you post your workshop listings on your site? Yes, she does.
I do.
Yeah.
I do. And I am, thanks for asking that. I will be sharing the workshop from this year will be to Colorado. And this is a great workshop because it's mixed with hiking, a good hiking challenge. And I have an expert on basically an expert in through hiking, teaching like self-surviving skills in the mountains. And it's mixed with photography. This will be in Colorado in July. So I will be sharing it soon. Still haven't made it public, but thanks for asking.
Yeah. Okay, the second question in there was from Mika. She wants to know, when you're taking photos, do you know when you're taking a photo if you'll be creating a black and white photo? And do you plan for that when photographing the scene?
I love that question because that used to be a no for me. I didn't know which photo was going to be a black and white and which was going to be color. But now I try sometimes to think in black and white. And I think that nobody recommended to set the color profiles of the camera to me. but I one day decided to play with them on camera because you take photos in RAW anyway, and you can always just change them in Lightroom in your software. And I started to set the camera in monochrome sometimes and take photos in black and white. And that has been really fun because it helps me to think different in the moment. So I take different photos when I think in black and white versus color. And of course, I'm still surprised. Sometimes I just spontaneously decide to do black and white back in editing.
Okay. All right. I'm flipping through here. There's lots of nice comments tonight, and I'll make sure you get that. Marcella, you survived your first happiness hour.
My first happiness hour. I'm so honored, Linda. Thank you so much
Yeah.
for the invitation. I hope that I mean it was not a very technical class, but just
I
a little
don't,
bit of my experience. So thanks for
yeah.
giving me the space to share.
Yeah. No, it doesn't have to be technical. For me personally, um, you have you and I have the love of travel in common. I was just in love with some of the places you've been because I've been to them. Where we do not have anything in common is I'm not hiking and I'm not biking and I'm not whatever you're doing to get to those vantage points. I'm never going to do those. So I love the fact that I can see your photos and say, I've been there. I'll never get those photos. And that's what
No, and
makes
you know what?
photography so fantastic because you give us a moment to like go with you and tag along to see those things. So I am just thrilled that you showed such a huge variety of photos and the landscapes where I started. That was my happy place because traveling ties into that and you just brought my love of it back tonight and I
You.
just so appreciate that.
I
Yeah.
didn't, yeah, and I didn't mean to make you feel or anyone feel that like you really
Oh,
have to go to these really
oh
complex
no.
and hard to get places to get these photos because I mean
No.
I do get it. These landscapes are beautiful by themselves.
Yeah. No.
But it's the same thing anywhere you go. And sometimes these like it can be at your garden, right? Like as long as
Right.
you can read the light and like see
Right.
your surroundings and you can do a street, you can apply
Yeah.
these to street photography,
Yep.
documentary,
Yeah.
anything, right? It's
Yeah, no, you did
constant
not. No,
movement.
you didn't know. You did not. Nothing to offend me. If anything, it's like, oh, I wish I'd started hiking, sooner because I would have loved to have done more of these little adventures. But I personally, when I said, did y'all catch that I trapped her that said this was your first happiness hour? Because that implies that you will be coming back here. And you live in
Definitely.
Austin, and I will track you down, and I want you to come back and do another presentation for us when your schedule permits. But I personally loved your presentation and just the gentleness of the way you speak, and it just oozes that this is your passion, and you've been very fortunate to be able to make a living out of this. And you're taking people and giving them an opportunity to experience what you love about traveling and what you love about photography. So, thank you for bringing it to us in our little Zoom room, and I so appreciate that you took the time to come in and share with us tonight. So, um,
I am so thankful and honored, and I thank you, Gidio and Mika, for the questions and everyone for the nice comments. I can't wait to read them all. I really appreciate the encouragement
yeah.
and everyone just sitting here to listen.
All right. Well, thanks again, and I'll bug you, and we'll look at a calendar. But all right, next week. Christy Adams, who's in the room tonight and is often in the room, but she is her stomping ground is New Jersey. And next week, she's going to share her presentation, The Art of Seeing Small, Photographing the New Jersey Pine Barrens. Y'all have a nice night, and we'll see you next week.